Hey guys, so a lot of people have asked me to make a leveling guide for my Spiral Volley Pathfinder, and I figured I'd just take this chance to make some sort of story video for my leveling journey for this character and pushing it into Endgame as well. This is my first time doing something like this, so hopefully you guys enjoy it, and let me know down in the comments what you think. And if you do enjoy it, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button so I know to make more of these types of videos. But let's get on with it. Starting off your journey as a Pathfinder, you'll wake up on the beach as a ranger with a bow and lightning arrow. You'll be using this for quite a bit, so get comfortable with it. You'll come across the bloated miller at the end of the beach, and after you take care of him quickly, you're going to go and talk to Renly inside of the town. From here, he'll give you an uncut gem which will turn into lightning rods. I'm sure as many of you guys know, the meta right now is to use lightning arrow and lightning rods. So this combo is going to carry you for quite a bit until you get gas arrow at level 22. Take this opportunity while you're in town to take a breather, and also, if you have any twink gear, be sure to equip some of that. Personally, I use the Widow Hail, and this carried me all the way until the end of the campaign. The only thing you need to worry about is getting a good quiver and upgrading that throughout the campaign, and you're all set. But one more thing before you set off on the rest of your journey. Be sure to not leave town without putting on your favorite MTX, because without it, you're definitely going to be doing ZDPS. Now with your new threads and one of the most OP skills in the game, you're ready to set off to take on the rest of Act 1. Even the secret boss of this act shouldn't pose much of an issue for you. Though, make sure not to get lost in the Museum the Praetor, because I swear that happens to me every single time I go through this campaign. But after you do that and are on your way to Geonor, be sure to stop by Freythorn to get your first Spirit Gem. I chose to use Herald of Ash because I think it's better for AoE clear, but feel free to grab Herald of Thunder if you prefer that instead. At the end of the act, you'll find yourself fighting Count Geonor, and for some reason, I feel like I get worse at this fight every time I face him. But to this day, I still think he's the best designed boss in the entirety of Path of Exile 2. After you defeat Geonor, the Hooded One will fly down out of nowhere seemingly, and he'll talk to Geonor for what seems to be an eternity, and he'll finally grasp his heart, end his life, and you'll be greeted with a bunch of loot. And as per usual, it's pretty much all trash. From here, you'll go back to town and proceed into Act 2. Now, if you're like me, I'm sure you guys are getting tired of using Lightning Arrow, but don't worry, we'll be getting Gas Arrow very soon. But before we let go of this OP skill combo, we need to send our regards to my two arch nemesis, Wrathbreaker and Balbala. To this day, they are my least favorite bosses to fight, and boy, do I hate them even more when I play hardcore. But finally, we reach level 22 where we can equip our first good poison skill, which is Gas Arrow. Poison Burst Arrow, in my opinion, is great in the endgame, but during the campaign, it struggles in the early game. Along with Gas Arrow, also take Toxic Growth and Vine Arrow. Thank goodness GGG decided to change Toxic Growth and have it shoot up in the air rather than making you do a backflip, because this made the skill go from completely useless to one of the best poison skills out there. It's one of the few times where look good, feel good really doesn't apply. But buckle up because you're going to be using this combo all the way until the end of the campaign. And with our transition to poison, we say goodbye to our good friend Herald of Ash and replace it with Plague Bearer. At this point, I decided to try out the new Nova projectile support because everybody seems to be using it, and while it's definitely not the best on Gas Arrow, it definitely does the job and helps us with getting more stacks of poison on our enemies faster. But if you don't like how this feels, feel free to use the good old multi-shot because that still works just as well as it did before. It's also very important, in my opinion, to put Concentrated Area on Toxic Growth so that it serves as a better single target option, because Gas Arrow isn't quite very good at that. Now with all your skills prepped and ready, it's about time to go and turn yourself into an official Pathfinder. While the Trial of Sequomas is still never fun, our new Gas Arrow Toxic Growth combo definitely trivializes this entire Trials, and with that, congratulations, you're now a Pathfinder. While Acidic Concoction does deal big damage in the endgame, at this point Toxic Growth still does more damage, so we're going to take Contagious Contamination as our first ascendancy. At this point, your old quiver from Act 1 might be going a little bit stale, so be sure to continue to upgrade it as you go through to make sure your campaign is as smooth as possible. Now as you make your way to Titan's Grotto, don't forget the two relics that you get from Keth and the Maston Badlands. I don't know how many times I've forgotten to get them because they're random drops and they usually don't drop for me the first time around those maps. But after I placed the relics in the medallion, I did end up choosing the 30% increased charm charges gain, and I'll have to say, it was very nice of them to give us a +1 charm charges this early on. But at the same time, it kind of makes the +3 charm charges on your belt a little bit useless since you can't get more than 3 at the moment. Now as you head into Titan's Grotto, I'm first reminded of how badly designed this map is, but also on top of that, how badly the boss of this map is designed. I know I said earlier that Wrathbreaker and Balbala were my arch nemesis, but I don't hate them. This boss, on the other hand, I absolutely despise. Luckily, this boss doesn't pose much of an issue for this build, but for so many of my builds, this boss has been an absolute menace. For some reason, its hitbox is just terribly wonky and half the skills in the game just don't end up hitting him. GGG, please fix your game. But after that horrendous boss, the rest of Act 2 should be a breeze. You should be able to get to Jaman-Ra with pretty much no problems, and this boss, which used to give us so much trouble, absolutely melts to our Toxic Growth combo. I remember the first time I fought him, it probably took me about 45 minutes to actually defeat him, and being able to easily just kill him in one try definitely shows how far I've come since the beginning of Path of Exile 2's launch. After beating Jaman-Ra, we head into Act 3, which is probably one of the worst acts in the entire game. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that, and the numbers don't lie. What makes this act so bad is just that it's extremely long for no reason. The areas are huge, and I am goddamn tired of pulling these levers in the Matland waterways. Please, Grinding Gear Games, can you just hear us out and make these maps smaller? But before we head there, we have to meet up with one of the scariest bosses in the game, the mighty Silverfist. And with the power level of this skill, we made quick work of this boss after our first death. We then head to the Venom Crypts, which again is one of the maps where I get lost constantly in. But surprisingly, this time around I found the Snake Venom fairly quickly, and after I head back into town, I decided to take the Snake Venom that gives me increased ailment threshold. Moving on, we head towards the Azak Bog, everybody's favorite map, and while I didn't get too lost, it definitely took a little bit longer than I would have liked. After killing Turbo Granny, we get another Spirit Gem, and we decide to pick up Withering Presence. This will help us out with the amount of damage that we do with our gas arrow and poison skills in general. I proceed to then kill the Chimera, and I actually feel strong enough for once to take on the Trial of Chaos, and we do that very easy, thank God we didn't get the bird, and we get our second Ascendancy point. With this, we go deeper into the poison playstyle and take overwhelming toxicity from the Pathfinder Ascendancy tree. While this significantly reduces the duration of our poisons, it gives us twice the amount of stacks that we can put on enemies, increasing our DPS by basically 2 times. So I think it's a worthy trade-off, especially during the campaign, and it'll cause our DPS to skyrocket for the rest of the game. Then after that, we head to the dreaded Matland waterways, where we have to pull so many levers just to get to the end of the map and pull another large lever to eventually leave and head off on our journey. But of course, that's not the last of the bad maps, as we still have Sun Temple to get through. But before that, we go and visit our lovely, lovely wife, the Queen of Filth. We say hi to her, give her a quick love tap, and then head off to the Sun Temple. Can someone please tell me why GGG loves these really bad map layouts? Nonetheless, we reluctantly finish up the Sun Temple, and we head towards Viper Nazuli and eventually Doriani. After making quick work of Doriani, we finally head off into Act 4 and not Act 1 to 3 Cruel anymore. Thank goodness for this change, and I have to say that Act 4 is an absolute masterpiece. Some people might think that it's a little bit too long, but the bosses are well worth it because they're some of the best bosses that the entire ARPG genre has to offer. Act 4 takes place in Kingsmarch, and it is here that we get access to our favorite NPC, Ange. This woman single-handedly changed the direction of Path of Exile 2 by adding asynchronous trade that people have been asking for years at this point. God, I love this woman. But Ange isn't all that Act 4 has to offer. This act, unlike others, is not a linear progression, but there are many different islands that you can sail to, and you can pick and choose which one you want to go to first. So in a way, it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure type of act. But of course, with my small monkey brain, I decided to just go to the closest island, which was Kedge Bay. This area is actually very similar to that of Castaways, which is a unique map at the end game of Path of Exile that gives you a ton of gold. And even the boss at the end is the same, with Captain Harton waiting for us at the end to beat him. After that, we set sail off to Wakapanu Island, where we get to fight against my favorite boss of Act 4, which is going to be the Great White One, which, you guessed it, is a giant shark. He's definitely a little bit of an annoying fight, but I really like him thematically, so I don't mind how annoying he is, just because we get to see him in action. We take him down quickly, then we head into the Singing Caverns, where we're met with the next boss named Damora Song of Death. And let me say, this is definitely a boss that you don't want to miss for more than one reason. But we end up taking her out pretty quickly as well, and next up is heading to the Halls of the Dead. In the Halls of the Dead, you'll find a couple of Hinakor's totems. There are 3 totems in total, and they will all summon waves of monsters that you have to defeat, and afterwards it will drop a blank tattoo. Be sure to do these events as they give you either attributes or resistances. In my case, I went for the resistances, and I would highly recommend most people go for this as well. And at the end of this map, we meet the one and only Yama the White, the monkey boss. And my gosh, this is such a cool fight, and reminds me a little bit of some raids that you might find in other MMOs. At some point in the fight, he'll stop time and send out 4 little illusions. Out of these 4, you have to choose the one that looks different and stand next to it. It'll create a safe zone around it, and standing in that safe zone will prevent you from taking any damage from the area of effect that is about to come. After that, all you need to do is beat him up and proceed off to the next area. I then decide to head off to the abandoned prison to fight the boss called the Prisoner. And this boss also has a mechanic to him, where at some point in time, you do enough damage and he'll drop to the ground. There are a couple of ballista around him, and you have to use these ballista to shoot a harpoon into his chest before he recovers all of his life. Rinse and repeat this a few times, and boom, he's dead. Before you leave this map though, be sure to visit the Goddess of Justice. Here you'll be able to choose whether you want to increase your recovery from mana flasks or life flasks, and in this case, I chose mana flask. And after you do this, there's a little bit of an Easter egg about a certain Labyrinth Trial Master from Path of Exile 1 who may or may not be visiting us in the future. But after that, we head off to Arostus and we meet up with Torvian. This is a very unique boss and has a huge mechanic that makes him take reduced damage. During this time, you're supposed to make him throw his boulder at the crowd that is helping him out and giving him this damage reduction buff. But honestly, I just killed him so fast that he never had a time to channel this buff, and we just proceeded off on our way. After beating Torvian and Benedictus, we head off to Gakanu and we fight the final act boss in Act 4. My first time fighting him was pretty difficult and I had to give it a couple of tries, but again, with our overwhelming damage this time around, the most difficult part of this fight had to be his minute-long monologues because, man, this guy loved to yap. And as a player, all we can do is sit there and wait for him to finish before we kill him in another half second. And with that, we head off into the Interlude. Now, the Interlude is an interesting piece of the puzzle. Grinding Gear Games put this in place because they didn't have Act 5 and 6 ready yet, but they didn't want to have no content between Acts 4 and the Endgame, so they introduced the Interlude. And for something that was conceptually supposed to be a placeholder, the Interludes were actually surprisingly well fleshed out. While thematically very similar to Acts 1 through 3, they actually have new zones, new enemies, and completely new boss fights. So for a placeholder, this is very impressive. And to some degree, I'm actually going to miss the Interludes when it disappears, because I feel like it actually acts as a very good bridge between the campaign and the endgame, which never existed before. You see, while the Interlude is not quite the endgame, the density of the monsters and the layouts of the areas actually make it feel like you've already finished the campaign and are well on your way through maps. But that's enough for my rambling, back to the game. Heading into the first act of the Interlude, we travel all the way back to Ogum, and here we find all of our familiar friends back from Act 1. We say hi to each of them, reminiscing on our memories, and are off on our way to the Scorched Farmlands. At the end of this map, we stumble upon some old friends having a quarrel. The Frost Witch from Act 1 and Turbo Granny from Act 3. I'm not exactly sure why they're so mad at each other, but maybe it's something about getting old. Nonetheless, we break up their fight, take them out quickly, and head off on our way to the next area. This next zone is pretty much a carbon copy of the unique map, the Enzymite Megaliths. In this area, there are a bunch of megaliths scattered across the edges of the map. Activating these won't quite summon a wave of bosses, but instead, it'll summon one boss that is more annoying than all of the bosses in the Ruined Megaliths combined. You know what? I take it back. Wrathbreaker, Balbala, the giant boss at the end of the Titan's Grotto, Sierra, you're definitely taking the cake for my most hated boss in the game right now. I'm not sure why she has a phase where she goes into darkness and basically guarantees that you have to take damage, nor do I know why she attacks so quickly, so often, and so hard. But regardless, we take a quick death, we get her back on our feet, and we take her out in another try. A couple of uneventful boss fights later, we land ourselves in the Holton Estate. In this map, we encounter Lady Elswith and Thane Wulfric. I'm not exactly sure what their lore is, but my guess is that they're Draven and Assinia when they were still alive. I'm not sure why I'm so enamored by this fight. For some reason thematically, these two characters stuck out a lot for me in Act 1, and seeing them in the Interlude again just brings me joy. And what brought me even more joy was to end their lives in a swift and painless death. All I can say is, I've never had a better experience dropping giant fart clouds on my enemies. Now it's from here that we head off into Act 2 of the Interlude. We once again meet up with our old friends and head into Kari Crossing, which I think is probably the most universally hated map in the Interludes. Nobody knows why this map is so big and obnoxious. Grinding Gear Games, once again, please fix your game. We then meet up with Elzara the Cobra Lord, and I kind of question why he's even called the Cobra Lord. As far as I know, there's nothing snake-like about him, and rather than summoning snakes, he summons tornadoes and hands out of the ground? What is going on here? Am I missing something? Regardless, we take him out again with ease, skip through a bunch of Asala's mindless rambling, and set our minds off to our next adventure. We head off towards Chima, where we find ourselves stumbling upon a couple of boons. Each of these boons give a different positive effect to your character. And since Path of Exile is all about speed, we choose the Orbala's boon that gives us 3% movement speed. This little area is hidden away in a corner, so I'm not surprised that many people would miss this, because I definitely missed it my first time around. So this is a reminder to anybody who's watching this video to quickly go get up off your chair, well, not really, get up off this video, take a quick detour to the subscribe button, and also head into Path of Exile 2 to check if you've done this quest already. After this, the only thing left of this act is the big bad Asmati. Despite how difficult this fight was before he got nerfed, he still remains as one of my favorite bosses in the entire game, and part of me still wishes he wasn't nerfed to the ground. But we fight him, take him out easily, and we head off into the third act of the interlude. And it's in this act that we run into Lithara the Wayward Spear. This woman is very reminiscent of another boss in Act 3, in both her moveset and also how badly she beat my ass. For some reason, those snakes were harder to dodge today than ever before, but luckily we're on softcore and a couple of deaths is nothing but a small setback. We head off to the Glacial Tarn to fight Rakkar, the Frozen Talon, and for some reason he decides halfway through the fight to encase himself in ice, completely immobilizing him, rendering himself helpless against my toxic growth. And while he's supposed to be an upgraded form of the bird in the Trial of Chaos, I can't help but think this was actually a downgrade. But after that, we head off to Crier Peaks and meet a strange NPC named Elder Maddox. He's surrounded by a ton of spectral owls, which leaves me in awe. And talking to him, he actually opens up a small little window that has a selection of unique items. I've heard you can get Headhunter from this, but unfortunately I wasn't so lucky this time. Instead, I get a mountain of trash, but out of this mountain, I decide to take the Black Insignia Corsair Cap. While it's not quite worth much, it was a unique item that I didn't own, so I figured I'd at least add it to my collection. And from here on out, it was pretty much a straight shot to the last boss of the interlude. My first time fighting Zelina and Zolan was definitely one that was distraught with a ton of trouble. But this time around, I was prepared. I brought my handy dandy staunching charm to prevent myself from bleeding, and proceeded to quickly take out Zelina the Blood Priestess first. For some reason though, even though I already killed her, she decided to stand there holding her hand up in the air as though waiting for her brother's death. And after taking out Zolan, both the priest and the priestess fell to the ground, and that marked the end of the interlude and our entry into the endgame. And since this wasn't our first character, we quickly head to the market to go do some shopping. We try to find the most cost-efficient items to help us transition into our Spiral Volley build, and after emptying our wallets, talking to Doriani to respec our entire tree, we jump headfirst into tier 15 maps. And while our character was barely holding on by a thread, we somehow made it through our first set of tier 15 maps. I knew that this was just the first step in making this character the best that it could be. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful for anybody who wanted to learn how to level up this Poison Spiral Volley Pathfinder. As per usual, let me know down in the comment section what you thought about this video, as well as hitting the sub button if you enjoyed it. It's the best way to support the channel and let me know that you want to see more videos like this in the future. I also stream every single night on twitch.tv/MesoXShiro, so hopefully I see you guys there, but if not, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. Alright guys, peace!